Integrity Sports Podcast powered by Harper's Tree and Stump Removal. If you have any tree trimming, tree removal, or stump removal needs, Harper's Tree and Stump Removal has you covered. They can do rock or sand. They can do driveway work. They can even do horizontal grindings of large wood debris piles. Give Keith a call at 229-314-2048 or at 229-938-2412. Harper's Tree and Stump Removal is proud to be the premier sponsor of the Integrity Sports Podcast.
Welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast, covering local sports in the Southwest Georgia area, creating content that is factual, positive, and informative, promoting efforts by athletes, coaches, and sports administrators. Now, here's your host, Tim Estes.
Good evening. We are live at the Roman Oven Pizzeria here in Americus. We hope that you'll come by and be a part of our show. Have a good dinner with us, and let's talk some high school football. I'm Tim Estes. I'll be your host, as always, joined by my good friend Scott Westbrook, and we enter week 9 of the high school football season. And, Scott, we are at a point in this season where I think we know enough about our area teams to know who may be contenders and who may be pretenders.
We are neck deep in region play. This is the time when the teams are putting it together. There's some injuries in some key locations, but everybody has that right now. So you're right, and everybody's kind of jockeying for position. We've already seen some brackets come out on the internet where people are trying to predict who's going to be where in the playoff bracket. So we're on the short rows now, Tim.
We do know who has had some injuries and maybe who's coming back from those injuries now and how that's going to affect those teams. The picture becomes a little more clear now as to which teams could be playoff teams and which teams at this point are just kind of finishing the season out. Scott, last week we only had one game of our 3 area teams that we focus on. That was Sumter County. They went down to Berrien County, and, boy, they throttled the Rebels.
Even though there was only one game, it was a game for Sumter County. This put them – they're batting 500 now. I think if anybody had told Coach Will Rogers or any others in the community that at this point Sumter County would be 3-3, either A, people wouldn't believe it, or B, they'd be tickled to death and say that's a great turnaround.
Absolutely. The Panthers traveled down to Berrien County last week. Quarterback Anthony Tyson had a great night through the air. Anthony was 9 for 12 for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns. Did a pretty good job on the ground, too, when he scrambled out of trouble. Had 26 yards rushing with several first downs picked up. Running back Jakari Wise had another good night. Jakari was the story carrying the football. He carried it 21 times for 124 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the very first play of the game, junior Torrey Smith went 62 yards on a pass reception for a touchdown. Tyson spread it all over the field last week. He hit 6 different receivers during the contest. Sophomore Quayshawn Tatum was the State Farm Player of the Week for the Panthers last week, and Quayshawn had a good night with 2 rushing touchdowns himself. The Panthers seemed to find their moxie about the second quarter and really never let up from that point. Defensively, the Panthers absolutely shut down Berrien County. Not much doing there. It was a 45-14 win. Scott, as you mentioned, that puts them at 3-3. This week, their opponent is Dodge County. Dodge County's 1-6 coming in, I believe. Mm-hmm. Sumter needs to get this win, put them at 4-3. Once they get this win this week, then they'll need to win at least one of their final 3 games. Now, they've still got Fitzgerald, who's really, really good. But after that, they'll have Worth County and Jeff Davis and need to pick up one of those 3 wins to put them at 5-5, and they'd be a playoff team.
And I think that would surprise everyone. I think that Sumter County has turned the corner now. They're looking to win this Friday night. They've got to, this is the game in front of them. They got to win this for any of those other scenarios to play out. They're playing at home, so really everything points to a good night for them. But one thing I think about Dodge County, I haven't seen them play, but if I'm not mistaken, did Dodge and Bleckley go into overtime?
They did the
Okay.
first game of the year.
So Dodge, if Dodge and Bleckley, we've seen Bleckley play.
We have.
We know the athletes they have. So if they went toe to toe with Bleckley, that 1-6 record that Dodge have may be deceiving.
It could be.
So
Yeah.
so I don't think that Sumter County should take them lightly. I think they should realize that they're playing a team who has definitely hung with a team that we saw, that we knew, or that we know to be good. And I hope that they don't start looking past this week. The most important game on Sumter County's schedule this season is tomorrow night.
Scott, if you look over the last several years of Sumter County or America Sumter football, I know for 2 years prior to this, they only won one football game.
Mm-hmm.
Will Rogers comes in as a first-year coach. I think, like you said, if in the preseason you said, okay, coach, these guys are going to go 5-5, they're going to get the 4 seed in the region and be a playoff team, I think you'd be happy with that.
I think that any reasonable high school football fan, after they laughed in your face, would say that would be an incredible turnaround, but unbelievably unlikely. But yet they've got it right here in their grasp, and they can make it happen.
And we started seeing the community getting back behind Sumter County football. We noticed a few weeks ago at homecoming, they had a big tailgate party. We see a lot of stuff on social media lately about Sumter County Panthers football. So it's good to see the community starting to get back behind these kids.
I would like, and maybe next week, hopefully we can talk to somebody over there and find out how the gates are matching up from this year to last year.
Yeah.
Say, okay, how did, at this point, how many fans showed up, for the home games on average last year as compared to this year?
And Scott, you went out to several practices to start the season. And one of the things you've talked to me about is just the discipline that Coach Rogers and his staff have brought to this team. And we know they've got good athletes. They've had good athletes every year.
Right.
But it takes somebody that can really point these guys in the right direction. And it looks like Will Rogers is well on his way to doing that.
Well, I saw firsthand, that there was he had consequences at practice to kids who didn't do well in school for whatever, whether it be conduct or academically. And so, it wasn't anything that, the way we were treated back in our day, the punishment they saw paled in comparison to what we had in the day. But for kids nowadays, they were having to go up and down hills and on their elbows and stuff like that. But, that's how you get attention. And there's nothing in the world wrong with that.
Absolutely. So good luck to Coach Rogers and the Sumter County Panthers. Excuse me. Today's show is also brought to you by Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance, located at 925 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Americus. You can reach Marty or any of his fine staff at 928-3686 or find them on Facebook. You can get in touch with Marty and discuss your insurance needs. He also can do the discount double check for you to make sure you're receiving all of the savings that is available to you. They even have a life-size cutout of the State Farm guy, Jake. Go by and visit with Marty, Mary Lynn, or any of their staff at Marty McDonald State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. So Sumter County will face Dodge County. Scott, we now move to the Southland Academy Raiders. The Raiders were open this past week, and it couldn't have come at a better time.
We've talked all season about the injuries they've had. I think you and I saw some of their players at Chick-fil-A the other day, and you were able to talk, because I had to head on out, but you were able to talk to them and get some injury reports, and it looks very promising for them this Friday night.
It does. According to those guys, it looks like everybody that has been injured should be back, so Southland will once again be at full strength. The Raiders right now come into the contest at 2-4. They'll be on the road this week, headed down to Thomasville, Georgia. They'll take on the Brookwood School, and the Warriors are 3-3. So it should be a pretty evenly matched contest. Southland has had a week to get healthy again. Hopefully all of their guys are going to be back this week. Their opponent, Brookwood, they've been battle tested. They had a shootout last week. They did beat Deerfield Windsor last week, 59-56. Brookwood has played several good teams. John Millage Academy, which is probably one of the top 2 teams in the GIAA. They've already played Stratford. They've played the McClay School. So you can look down their schedule and know that these guys have been battle tested. Scott, the one thing that really stuck out to me about Brookwood last week is they threw the football 66 times. I bet that game didn't get over until 11 o'clock.
Like arena football is what it looked like, probably.
It did. Have you ever heard of a high school team throwing it 66 times?
That's unbelievable. I've got some stats on that. The quarterback is 6'5", Raj Waldrop, and they had 698 yards.
Wow.
Receiving 7 touchdowns in that game. His favorite receiver is Rex Schofield, and he caught 25 passes for 369 yards. Well, you might say, well, those are some state records. Well, they would be, but they don't. The Georgia High School Historians Association doesn't keep up with GIA, or they don't keep up with they keep up with all the GHSA records. But you compare that to the number 1 receiving game that has been in GHSA was in 2010 at Lee County when they passed for 595 yards. So it was a full 103 yards beyond what the GHSA record that has been kept on. And then the running backs, they didn't carry the ball off of it. When they carried it, they had 7 yards of carry. So, I mean, there was some interesting offensive stats came out of that game.
Hey, and that quarterback's already got 21 passing touchdowns on the season. That's impressive.
It is. And but you compare that or contrast that with the score of the game. The score was 59-56 against Deerfield. As impressive as the offense is, the defense has got more holes than a White House briefing.
Yes.
I mean, it's I mean, I would love to see a team come into Ellaville and pass that many times and have a defense that is equally as weak as the offense appears to be strong.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. We'll see what Southland does with that.
What I think it's going to mean for the Raiders are guys that play in that defensive backfield. Guys like Mac McMichael, Ashton Ray. Let's see who else is back there. Trey Sellers is back there. Those guys. Perry's more up front. He's a defensive end type guy. But definitely McMichael and Sellers and Ashton Ray and even the freshman Turner Simmons. These guys are going to have a lot of opportunities to knock down passes. They're going to have a lot of opportunities to intercept passes. They've got to stay in coverage even longer than normal, I think. But they're going to be a big key for the Southland Academy Raiders this week. The defensive backs are going to have a good game.
6'5" quarterback in high school is probably pretty difficult to bring down also.
I would think so. On defense, Brookwood's led by their linebacker, Chapman Wolfsfeld, who comes into the game averaging 12 tackles a game. Daniel Briggs, he's another linebacker. He averages 11 tackles per game. And Schofield, the receiver that we mentioned, he's a safety. He's averaging 10 tackles a game. So, Scott, if you look at that, you got 2 linebackers that average 20 tackles a game, basically, and then another guy in the backfield, the safety, that's got 10. There's 30 tackles on the second and third tier. That tells me, like you said, that defensive line up front's got a lot of holes in it.
It does. You can get past that. You've got you can break off some pretty big yards on some rushing stats.
Going to be really good to see the Hart kid back this week at center for Southland, Tom Hart. We are glad that you're back. Also, both of the Say kids, and they're big boys. They're going to be back up front on both the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. So I feel like Southland's going to be back at full strength. Scott, we'll talk a little later about our prediction for this, but when you match these two teams up, they look pretty good and look like it's going to be a fairly evenly matched game.
I think it'll be worth the trip to Thomasville for any Southland fan who may want to go to that one.
And here's what we've got to think about Southland. You look at where they're at now. They're at 2-4. If they can pull this game off, I think this is the rubber game of their season. If they can get a win against Brookwood, then you look at who their last few opponents are. Valwood's going to be a tough go. And I'm not real confident going into the Valwood game for the Raiders. But they can win against Deerfield. They can win against Tift area. So if you get those 2 wins and you get the Brookwood win, that puts your season at 5-5 and definitely puts you in the playoffs.
And that's got to be their goal at this point.
And then you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, once you get in the playoffs, you never really know what's happened. How many times have we seen a playoff team that came in 6-4 or 5-5 and then got hot and reeled off several wins?
As long as you're peaking at the end of the season, that's all you can ask for, regardless of your record.
So we'll talk a little more about Southland Academy in just a little bit. Let me tell you about One Digital. They are the standard of business and personal development. Their insurance, financial services, and HR platforms provide personalized, tech-enabled solutions for a contemporary work-life experience. One Digital resolves real problems for your business and employees by fusing together customized solutions that address employee benefits, HR, and financial services. It's everything all in one. It's One Digital. You can contact Will Peterson at 229-347-02. Help me out, Scott.
347-6289.
6289. I forgot my glasses tonight. So Will Peterson, 347-6289. One Digital is proud to be the sponsor of the Integrity Sports Podcast. Scott, that gets us to the Schley County Wildcats. The Wildcats were open last week, and they'll host the Taylor County Vikings, who come in at 5-1. Should be a big night over in Ellaville.
I think so. Taylor County is shown on a lot of polls as kind of being a bubble team, just kind of nosing, trying to get their toe in that number 10 spot in the Division II Single A poll.
So the current record 6-0 for Schley County. They continue to be the number 1 ranked team in GHSA Class A Division II. Taylor County comes in the contest a little confident, and they should be. They're 5-1 after dropping their opening game of the season to Southland Academy. Taylor County has reeled off 5 straight wins. Here's who they've beaten. They've beaten Crawford County, who's at 1-6 or 0-6, aren't they? Is Crawford won a game?
I don't think.
Did
they beat Twiggs County?
They may have.
I think they did.
Maybe 1-6.
I don't know. I think Central beat Twiggs.
Yeah, they've beaten Montgomery County, who I know is 0-7. They've beaten Chatco, who's 0-6. They've beaten Central of Talbotton. I know Central beat Twiggs County. Central is 1-5. And they've beaten 1-5 Greenville. So, Scott, if you take all of the wins of all of the teams that Taylor County has played this year, that comes up to 5 or 6 wins. Schley County comes in at 6-0. They have at least equaled the win total of all of the opponents. So, as we've said for a couple of weeks now, Taylor County is confident. We're glad you're confident. And I don't want to bash Taylor County, but they're going to face a different level of opponent this week than they've seen all year.
They are, Tim, but there's some other things that are coming into play that concern me. One, the weather. 2, just the timing of the game. It's right before the Manchester game, and it just smells like a trap game to me at this point.
Very well could be a trap game, Scott. This Schley County team has already won 6 football games against several good opponents this year. In the GHSA Class A Division II, Taylor County, Scott, I saw this today on the Georgia High School Football Daily. Taylor County, there's 49 schools in Class A Division II. Strength of schedule, they're at 47 to this point in the season. And so
it'll change next week.
Yeah, it'll change after next week. But Scott, let's talk real quickly about this game and what we can expect from both Taylor County and Schley County.
Well, what I expect to see from Taylor County is this. I expect them to see them do the same thing they did last year. I expect to see them run the ball, try to control the clock, keep the score as close as possible. I expect to see some trick play. I expect to see a onside kicks, fake punts, whatever they have to do to kind of upset the apple cart, to catch Schley County on their heels and being complacent and looking towards next week. That's what I expect.
Yeah. Scott, they've relied pretty heavily on DJ Jenkins, their running back. He's averaging 116 yards a game right now. I'm just not confident he can get even close to those kind of yards against the Schley County defense. My personal opinion, I know they've got a guy back there at quarterback that wishes he was somewhere else. He likes to play defense, and he's a great athlete in Cameron Lawhorn. I think they're going to have to come out and try to surprise Schley County by throwing the football.
Now, DJ Jenkins had a good game against us last year. He's a good athlete. He'll be a linebacker. He's a great football player, great athlete. I think Cameron, I mean, if you ask any kid on a football team, they're going to tell you a lot of times they wish they would play in this position or that position or whatever. But the reality is Cameron is a top shelf linebacker, and he is a top shelf tight end. Has been cast into the quarterback role at Taylor County just out of necessity, and he has done remarkably well at it. But what happens with Cameron when he's playing on both sides of the ball, especially at quarterback, he can't be the phenomenal defensive player that I know he is.
Right.
Just because he's by the third or fourth quarter, he's dog tired and beat up in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I think if Cameron had his druthers, he would probably, like to be, more at linebacker and more at, tight end, because that's where he would shine. But he's done quite well at quarterback. He has, he'll tuck the ball and run, and when he runs like a fullback, and that's just, and then you combine that with DJ Jenkins, you've got a pretty effective running attack there.
Well, and when you look at the defensive front that these guys are going to go against in Schley County, guys like Dedrick Thornton, who had an incredible game. I thought our last game probably played his best game of the year. But you got him. You got Wyatt Halstead up front. You got guys like Jack Clark in the middle as the linebacker. Zayden Walker, of course, on one of those defensive ends. Ethan Sellers has been a big force in the middle there. I mean, those front two tiers, the front line and the linebackers that are going to come up and plug those holes. DJ Jenkins is going to get beat up. Whoever's at quarterback, if that's Cameron Lawhorn, is going to get beat up. And if I'm Brandon Byron, the coach at Taylor County, I've got to be thinking, what can I do to get the ball out quickly that's not just going to physically punish my players? And that's why I think they're going to have to throw the football.
The problem with that, I see, is, first of all, another one of the guys, and I know you're like me, you can't remember all the kids' names, but Trenton Stubbs. I mean, he's going to upset the apple cart on the passing game and the running game. The problem is Taylor County, I don't think, has thrown the ball enough this year to sit there and try to cut your teeth against the defense like Schley County has. I think even if you try a high percentage pass on them, whether it be a screen pass or a bubble screen or a slant, Schley County has seen that all season with some very good teams who have a very effective passing. And you blink your eyes on a bubble screen, and Jalewis Solomon is standing with the ball in another end zone.
Right.
If you pause just long enough, or if one of your other receivers misses a block, or you don't put enough zip on that ball, or you misfire it and don't put it right in the receiver's gizzard, Jalewis Solomon will have it at the house before you can pick up your lunchbox. I mean, that's just going to be that quick, and that's why I don't think that. I think they're going to run the ball. I think they're going to do some trick plays. If I was a betting man and I had to give an over-under, I don't think Taylor County will throw the ball more than 5 times. I think 5 times is the most they'll throw it tomorrow night.
We'll see, Scott. You and I don't disagree often. I think Coach Byram's going to have to come up with something through the air, because I just don't see them being able to effectively run the football, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, I mean, you figure Macon County only had 12 yards rushing on us, but
right.
But it's, they did more of a no huddle, hurry up, let's get them, but I think you're going to see Cameron hold them in the huddle till about 8 seconds, and then he'll come out there and snap the ball. And if they get 3 yards, 2 yards, they're going to do the same thing again. They're going to just keep that clock up.
And we did see early in the Macon County game, they were able to get a few passes off.
Yes, they were, but it was that a lot of that probably was out of necessity because they were a wing T team and they looked up and they were 2 and 3 touchdowns down, so they figured, this wing T, and that that's funny because historically Taylor County in their best years they were a wing T team,
right?
But they've abandoned that over the years. But whenever Bill Montgomery was there and they were going deep in the playoffs and they were doing really well, they were wing T and they didn't throw the ball 2 or 3 times a game, so.
All South Appraisals is a trusted partner in appraising rural properties in our area. All South Appraisals can handle all types of property, whether that's agricultural, commercial, or residential. From vast farmlands to that charming country home, they specialize in rural properties that define the heart and soul of our community. Their commitment to accuracy and dedication to understanding the unique nuances of rural properties is what sets them apart. They blend modern technology with old-fashioned attention to detail to provide you with an appraisal that you can trust. Whether you're a lender, an attorney, an accountant, a real estate agent or broker, or a property owner, give All South Appraisals a call. And Scott, you're going to have to help me out here. All South Appraisals number is
478-837-3818.
Say that again.
478-837-3818. It cracks me up that you can't see up close, and I can, but I can't see what's on the screen, but you have no problem there. So
that's right.
We make a pretty decent team. Between the 4 of our eyes, we got 2 good ones,
We do have someone checking in on the live chat. It looks like our friend Tommy Eubanks has checked in. Let's see what Tommy has to say. He says, is that a Whaler hat?
It is.
That you see.
It's a Hartford Whalers, one of the best logos in the history of all sports is the Hartford Whaler logo. Yeah,
I hear you. Tommy Eubanks, we hope is going to have him a podcast coming up pretty soon. And
it's in the works.
We will definitely throw him some love. Tommy is a good friend of our show and hope he'll be able to come back and be a part of this again sometime real soon. Scott, we've got several other games in our area coming up this week. First of all, our friends over at Macon County, they'll have the open week this week. So Macon County will not play. They'll be at Chatco the following Friday night.
I bet you a lot of those will be in Ellaville. A lot of Macon County fans will be in Ellaville tomorrow night.
I think you're right, yeah.
And rumor has it, if not, I just heard this rumor. Taylor Swift might be at the game tomorrow night.
Will Kelsey be there with us?
I don't know, just might. So, you plan accordingly when purchasing tickets for tomorrow night's game.
That's right. Marion County, who's currently 3-3, they'll take on Chatco. Chatco's 0-6. Scott, I don't think Marion's going to have much problem with this one.
Marion's a 20-point favorite. Chatco's 0-6. We saw them. They're struggling this year. They don't have quite the team they've had the past couple of years. It's cyclical in single-A sports, and this is just one of their down years.
All right, let's go to Crisp County. Crisp is at 4-3. They'll take on Carver of Columbus, who's at 5-3. Crisp dropped a game last week to Monroe out of Albany. Kind of surprised both of us. What do you think about this week as they take on Carver of Columbus?
Carver at the beginning of the season was very highly ranked. They've slipped in the polls. Carver is a 3-point favorite. I think I'm going to go with Carver on this one because I just don't know. Crisp County, when you say we don't know what team's going to show up, but more often than not, it's the team that takes the L for Crisp County here recently.
That's right. Scott and I are going to disagree on this one. I'm going to say Crisp County gets back on the winning track. My good buddy JoJo Wright from JoJo Knows Sports promises me that Crisp County has gotten things straightened back out. So, JoJo, I'm going to go with you and the Crisp County Cougars this week. Lee County at 6-1. They're open. Scott, next week they'll take on north side of Warner Robins, but it looks like Lee County has kind of found their groove.
They have. That's not a team you'd want to play right now, whether you're 6A or 7A. Lee County, they're you see on a lot of message boards, you see on a lot of the Facebook high school football. Most people are predicting Lee County to be at the Benz in December.
On the private school side, Deerfield Windsor at 1-6. They'll host Coach Eric Soliday and the Tift Area Academy Panthers. Tift area 0-5-1.
Deerfield Windsor's a 2-point favorite in this game, probably only because they're at home between these two teams. But I've got to tip my hat and say I think Deerfield Windsor's going to go ahead and get a win this weekend.
I'm going to have to go with you. Deerfield been in a lot of close games this year. 3 of their games, I think, have been within 2 points. So they're competing. They just hadn't gotten on the winning side very often. Eric Soliday and the Tift area Panthers definitely down this year at 0-5-1. I'm going with Deerfield as well. We normally focus on teams that are solely in our area, but Scott, I did want to mention we had some conversation this week with our good friend Kerry Claiborne, who is the PA announcer up at Buford High School. He's also the PA announcer for the Gwinnett Strikers. But Buford going to travel just across town to Mill Creek. That'll be the 7A classification. Number 1, Buford versus number 2, Mill Creek. Boy, I bet that's going to be a battle.
So much so that ESPN has decided they're going to carry ESPN2, I believe is. My thoughts on this particular game: Mill Creek, Carson played in a all-star game back in December, and there were a lot of Mill Creek players on there. They all impressed me. They were very poised. They were very engaging. A good group of young men. They were all juniors last year, like Carson. They're seniors now. I was impressed with their leadership skills, their athletic ability. But let's be honest. I mean, Buford is 3 deep in every position.
With
prospects at every position. We went and toured a school this weekend, and we ran into a former Buford player up there who kind of showed us around. He plays lacrosse up at the school, but he also played football. He was at Buford. My opinion of Buford, as it has been the past 2 years, if Buford loses, they beat themselves.
Yeah, they're the gold standard for sure.
They don't. When they went in, they lost to Walton last year. Walton didn't beat them as much as Buford lost the ball game, and I think that's pretty much across the board now. Now, Mill Creek, I think they're favored by 6 in this game.
Really?
Yeah, which kind of surprised me. I had to look twice. I hope I didn't read it incorrectly, but Maxwell Ratings is I'm starting to put a little less stock in it when I see some of their polls they come out with on the rankings. But I think this is Buford's game to lose. I think they want to make a statement and on the national level in ESPN. I think Mill Creek wants to win, but I think when you sit there and you're facing a Buford team that is properly motivated and is going to be firing on all cylinders, they're tough to beat. So I'm going to go with Buford in this game, even though I guess they're the underdog, which is surprising.
Kerry, I got to agree with Scott. I've been on the other side of some Buford beatings in the past when I was doing radio for America's High back years ago. Buford got us in a state championship, and I've been impressed with them ever since. So I'm going with Buford as well. Scott, before we get to our picks for our 3 local teams, I want to talk a little bit about girls fast pitch softball. It's coming up on playoff time.
Mm-hmm.
I know this week the Schley County Lady Wildcats will head over to, they're not going to host, even though they're a number 2 seed. Georgia High School last year changed the format, and they have 8 super regionals. So you'll have 4 teams. County going to take on Towns County out of Hiawassee. Schley County will play Christian Heritage out of the Dalton area, and then those 2 winners would meet. So good luck to Coach Jody Sellers and the Lady Wildcats. The Southland Academy Lady Raiders also, they'll start their state softball playoffs this coming Saturday. Scott, we talked to some of their players earlier tonight here at the Roman Oven. They've got a tough matchup on Saturday. But we want to wish them the best of luck. They'll take on
George Walton.
George Walton, from up in the Milledgeville area. So good luck to the Lady Raiders as well. It's time for the Booger Bottom Wrap-Up, brought to you by the Booger Bottom Yacht Club. They have been voted numerous times as the best burger in Sumter County. They're located on the banks of Lake Blackshear, just off of Lamar Road. Go by and see Miss Sue, Rick, Russ, or Renee, or any of their fine staff, and let Booger Bottom wrap you up with the best burger in Sumter County. Scott, let's start with Southland Academy. Southland at 2-4 travels to Brookwood. Brookwood at 3-3. I know it's going to be close. What are your thoughts?
Brookwood's a 4-point favorite, I guess, because they are at home. You know, they know. I mean, there's no secret what Brookwood's going to try to do to win. So I'm just hoping that the defensive backs can do what they need to do on the Southland side, and the defensive line can do what they need to do to put a little bit of pressure on him. I'm concerned. If I was the coach at Brookwood, I'd be more concerned about my defense than anything at this point. If Deerfield wins are hung over 50 on me, I mean, that was a 50-50 game. Both teams scored over 50 points. I'm going to go with Southland on this one, just simply because that defense really concerns me for Brookwood.
Scott, I'm going to agree with you. If you're a Southland Raider or a fan of Southland Academy, listen to what I'm telling you. Southland knows they need to get this, and they know they need to get 2 of their final 3 to get in the playoffs. They've always, when they've kind of been backed in a corner, they've come out fighting, and I believe the Raiders will do that this week. I know Rod Murray. I know his character. He's a good motivator. I think Rod will get his kids up for this. So, Southland, we're going to go with you to upset Brookwood and to win 2 of your last 3 and get in the playoffs. So, help prove us right. Let's hope the Raiders can get a win as they travel down to Thomasville to take on Brookwood. Sumter County at 3-3. They're going to host the Dodge County Indians at 1-6. Scott, what's your thoughts?
Sumter County is a 15-point favorite in this game. I think that's a lot generous. I think Sumter wins, but it's not going to be by 15 points.
I think you're right. The AI, the artificial intelligence that's used to predict some of these games, I think has got this one wrong. I do think it'll be close. Both teams, I understand, have really good kickers, so I think it's going to come down to the kicking game, special teams. But I think at home, on a roll, Sumter County knows this is one of them they've got to get into the playoffs. I really believe the Panther Nation's going to get behind them, and they know this. So let's pick Sumter County to defeat Dodge County and get their record over the 500 mark at 4-3. So good luck to Coach Will Rogers and all the Panthers. Schley County at 6-0. They'll host Taylor County, who is currently 5-1. Scott, do you have the line on this game?
41 points.
41?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you think?
I think that Cameron Lawhorn and DJ Jenkins are the 2 senior leaders on the team. I think they're going to step up, and I think Cameron's going to have a good game. I think DJ's going to have a good game. I think Sly's going to win, but I don't think it's going to be by 41 points. I think the weather's going to come into play, and I think that the game plan that I think Coach Byram's going to come in with is going to try to keep it close, try to keep it low scoring. But, you know, if they come out and pass, then I'm going to throw this out the window, because I'm telling you that's not a defense you want to cut your teeth with in the passing game.
Scott, I'm definitely going to pick Schley County. I think Schley County's going to win it. I don't think 41 points is enough. And I'm glad when this game's over, because Scott and I have gone back and forth on the phone behind the scenes for several weeks. I have some good friends up in Taylor County. Sheriff Jeff Watson, Dane Smith, those guys have always been a lot of fun to be around, and I've had a relationship with them. So I don't want to make those guys really mad, but I do think Schley County is a much better team. I'm going to say it's going to be 49-7, maybe 56-7. I think Schley at home makes a statement about their dominance in this region, and Schley County wins it big. Scott, that takes care of all of our schools in our focus group. I want to hear your final thoughts on this week, which is week 9. It's hard to believe, week 9 of high school football.
I mean, we're in region play at this point. We've, they've fished all the ponds outside the region, and now you got to face the teams, your next door neighbors. And I think that this is the time for the teams to, all these kids know each other. They've played little league ball against each other. They've played middle school football, baseball, whatever, basketball against each other. So they all know each other. So, there's not going to be a whole lot of surprises, I wouldn't think, but who knows? One thing next week, Tim, we may have a special guest on the show.
I hope so. I've heard that.
And, he and I have been corresponding a little bit, and he's if any of you are on Instagram, he is a Georgia Tech student, and he breaks down and analyzes high school football better in Georgia, better than anybody I've ever seen.
I heard him for the first time and got to agree with you.
Hey, I mean, to sit there and think that he's a college student and talk to him, and you think you're listening to somebody who's an ESPN analyst. He is his Instagram page is GAHS football, GAH Georgia High School Football, GAH, and I hope we.
And it's on Instagram, right?
It's on Instagram. That's right. He's on Instagram, and he says he's going to see what his school schedule looks like. I promised him we wouldn't time up more than 10 or 15 minutes, but there are some very we want his opinion on a few games next week, and then it could be some that's in our area, it could be some that's outside. But I'm telling you, this young man. I mean, he's at Georgia Tech, so he's going to do fine regardless once he graduates. But I think he's got a future in probably being the go-to guy for Georgia high school football one day.
And I know he is a guest on several other podcasts, so this medium has been really kind to him. I know he has been the guest on several of these podcasts, and they appreciate what he has to say as well. We want to thank you for making the Integrity Sports Podcast a part of your weekly routine. We certainly want to thank all of our sponsors. Harper's Tree and Stump Removal is our premier sponsor, along with Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance, All South Appraisals, One Digital Solutions, and Booger Bottom. Of course, it's always nice to be here in the room at the Roman Oven. Want to thank those that have come by and said hello to us tonight. You can find our show on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. We particularly want you to go to our YouTube page and hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to the 1,000 subscriber mark by the end of football season, so please do that. We had nearly 1,500 that viewed the program this past week, so I want to thank you if you were a part of that as well. But for my good friend, Scott Westbrook.
You want to see if anybody's put on the thing before we sign off?
Well, we'll check it out. Looks like somebody has been on there, Scott. Let's see who it is. Doug Hatch. You want to say hello to Doug Hatch? He said, "What's happening, Tim?" Well, same old, same old. We've got a lot of good high school football going in the Southwest Georgia area. So thank you, Doug, for checking in. You can always interact with us on our live chat here at the Roman Oven. So for Scott Westbrook, I'm Tim Estes. Thanks for watching this week. So long, everybody.